What's up, guys? Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our Week 8 match in the UPA-D League Season 4, taking on Scotty and the London Luxray, who took over this team from Matt, who took it over from Fizzle, aka Ben. So it's passed through 3 hands, and I don't think it's gone through transactions at all, which is really interesting. So Scotty's team could have been Z Garchomp, Infernape, Ferrothorn, Z Mimikyu, Starmie, Mega Pidgeot, Thundurus, Therian, Mesprit, Weezing, Umbreon, Avalugg, or Z Grottle. I was not expecting either of the Psychic types. Neither of them showed up. I'm very pleased to see no Garchomp and no Infernape, especially the Garchomp, because I had nothing for Scarf Chomp on my entire team. But yeah, Infernape, I'm really happy to not see either. I couldn't really handle that. I adjusted the EVs on my Torn-T in the team builder. I adjusted my EVs on the Necrozma before the game. To be able to handle the Infernape a little bit better. I'm definitely a lot more pleased to see what I see in front of me, especially the Weezing, which I know is probably a Mega Scissor check, or sorry, a regular Scissor check, which there doesn't seem to be a ton of on his entire roster. So Weezing kind of had to come for Scissor, otherwise he kind of got bodied by just like Banded Scissor, putting in a ton of work against his team here. So if you haven't seen my team builder, you should check it out. I'm like a Scarf Hydra, Band Scissor, Helmet, Torn-T, I'm a Rocks, Lefties, Necrozma, Specs Gardevoir, and Assault Vest Heliolisk. So I am just going to lead with my Torn. It doesn't really have a bad lead matchup against anything bar Thundy, and I figure if he's going to lead with Thundy, he's going to click like Volt Switch on turn 1 anyways, so I can just make the hard aggressive read, go into Gardevoir, and Volt Absorb on it, and then just click Specs Moonblast and see what the actual switch in is to that. I don't think it's much, so that's my play, is just to lead Torn. He actually leads Mimikyu, which is, as an avid Mimikyu user myself, plug, you guys should check out my Mimikyu video on the channel. I'm a very extensive Mimikyu user. This is, yeah, if you're bringing Mimikyu against me, chances are you shouldn't, because I know exactly what it's going to do. In the matchup, but he's definitely going to be like Fairy MZ in this game. It doesn't make any sense to not be Fairy MZ against my team. He might have Woodhammer. He could also be a Trick Room variant. Those are the kind of things that would make the most sense against my team. Ghostium actually makes some sense, but he's got to have a reliable way to hit the High Dragon. And Ghostium's a little bit better against the Scissor, but he could also just Fairy him the Scissor if he's at +2, and it'll do quite a lot of damage. So I'm just going to click Heat Wave turn 1, and I actually miss. So I was just going to break the Disguise there, but thank goodness, because I just get to taunt this thing. I mean, not thank goodness, because then I miss a Hurricane as well, and we don't get any read on what this is, but we get some fat Rocky Helmet chip on this Umbreon turn 3, which is super good for me. I still have no intel on what this is, but I've taunted it, so I know that it can't Wish on me. And I'm guessing its last 2 moves are Wish and Protect, based on what we've seen just from the Toxic and the Foul Play. So that's sort of something we can just extrapolate there. Now, I decided this turn I'm just going to go for another Hurricane. There's really no downside to it. If the Thundy comes in, the Thundy comes in. Again, I just make the aggressive play in a Gardevoir. It really doesn't matter to me. So I'm going to hit the Hurricane this time. We find out this is very specially defensive, but it's not entirely specially defensive. He's just going to opt to take more Rocky Helmet damage, and then the taunt wears off. So I figure it's actually my best play to just U-turn out here, because he's either just going to, like, I don't think he wants to take the taunt and just sit there foul playing me, because he foul plays me again, takes Rocky Helmet chip, and then Hurricane might kill him if I don't taunt. So it's definitely in his best interest to switch out here. So I just went for the U-turn. I don't care what comes in on my U-turn. I get to like break a Mimikyu Disguise, or I get momentum on whatever. So turns out it is going to be the Pidgeot that I get momentum on, which lets me bring in my Heliolisk for free without taking a hit, which is great. He's going to go into the Ferrothorn. This is a pretty easy read from my end. Like, he's predicting the electric move, but doesn't want to risk the Thundurus just in case. So this is a nice middle ground play. So I actually click Focus Blast, predicting that, and of course I miss. So, you know, turn 6, I've missed a Heat Wave, a Hurricane, and a Focus Blast already. I'm just going to go hard into my Torn here. You know, it's definitely my best play to just like Heat Wave this thing to death. But he's actually going to make a double into the Mimikyu, which I'm sure he regrets. And I'm going to go for the U-turn this time instead of Heat Wave to break his Disguise or whatever, which lets me bring in my Necrozma on the Thundurus here. So good intel there. It tells me the Thundurus is pretty much no bulk. That's about what you'd expect from a Thundurus in most cases. I've got a Hydra, so if it's creeping the Hydra, then it's definitely not going to have a ton of bulk on it anyways, so it's about the roll I expected. Necrozma's going to going to come in here, and I'm going to be able to get up my rocks, which is huge against this team. I figure, you know, the Umbreon can come in basically for free and get up a Wish, but rocks are a lot more important for me. And I've sort of put the Ferrothorn in a position where it's not going to be able to set up rocks. So we get our rocks up. He actually shows the U-turn there, and that's very hefty damage. That's actually a physical Thundurus based on what I saw. It looks like it's jolly max attack based on the U-turn damage there. So something a little bit that caught me off guard was physical Thundurus. I was definitely a lot more prepared for special Thundurus. So pretty good bring on his part. He might have like a flying move for a Moongus or something if he was really scared of a Moongus. I feel like Psychic is probably just a better option there. But, you know, there you go. Physical Thundurus definitely has a worse time against Mega Swampert. Could bring like Agility 3 attacks with like Psychic, T-Bolt, and Grass Knot, and if you have other ways to beat Hydra, then you're probably fine with that. But you know, he can do whatever he wants. So, anyways, I've got the Necrozma here against the Umbreon. Umbreon obviously came in. I'm predicting a Toxic because that's generally what you click against a Necrozma. Like Foul Play doesn't make that much sense to just click against him. I've got Prism Armor first of all, and who knows what I could go for, right? I could have Signal Beam or X-Scissor or something. Well, excuse me, maybe those aren't as threatening as you'd want against Umbreon, but it doesn't make that much sense to just Foul Play and a Necrozma in my mind. So I'm actually just going to go Hard Scissor on what I predict to be Toxic, but is actually a Foul Play. And it does a trillion to me. I'm surprised it didn't just OHKO me, but U-turn gets to just do a lot of damage here. So we're going to catch the Weezing with the U-turn. Shows to be very physically defensive Weezing, and I get my Gardevoir in basically for free. You know, this is good momentum for my Gardevoir. It's not basically for free because my Scissor took damage, but Scissor doesn't need to be healthy in this game. At a certain point, I want to just be clicking Bullet Punch anyways. Specifically with the Ferrothorn dead, I can probably just click Bullet Punch against most things with rocks up. Yeah, so here I'm going to make a prediction and predict that he's going into Spadef Pharaoh, and I figure it's decent enough damage for me to get HP Fires onto the Umbreon here anyways, so I'm just going to go for the HP Fire, Specs HP Fire. In most cases, it'll two-shot this Weezing, but he's actually just going to stay in on the HP Fire that I thought the Ferrothorn was coming in for. I could have just blown this Weezing back with a Psychic, and then there would have been absolutely nothing to block my Scissor from doing anything. But yeah, he's going to live, and then because of leftovers, this actually turns into a role that I don't want to take. So I'm going to double into the Necrozma here as he goes to Umbreon. Get a little bit of lefties back. I figured I could take the Sludge Wave and then threaten it out with a Photon Geyser, but I'm going to double into my Gardevoir here as he's going to Baton Pass. I wanted to synchronize the Toxic, because again, I think he's just going to click Toxic against my Necrozma. But he's going to be able to get the momentum and go into his Pidgeot here, which really sucks for me. Means that I have to double into my Heliolisk. He obviously threatens out my Gardevoir. Pretty free Hurricane, one of the freest Hurricanes of his entire life against the Gardevoir there. I don't have a, Heliolisk is my Flying Resist, which is why I made it Assault Vest. Because it's actually the only Flying Resist on my entire team. So Mega Pidgeot would have ran through me if I wasn't like a bulkier Helios here, but it's probably four-shotting me. I figure Thunderbolt's probably a fairly safe play here, but the Thundurus can always just Volt Absorb the T-Bolt, and the Ferrothorn can always just come in relatively for free. I'm actually going to get confused, which makes things a little bit more challenging for me, but I figure that Hyper Voice isn't a horrible play here. It'll two-shot the Pidgeot if it stays in. It'll do the most that I can besides HP Ice to the Thundurus. HP Ice actually would have been a fairly safe play as well, given that the Ferrothorn is a reasonably likely switch in at some point, but instead I'm just going to go for the Hyper Voice here, and it turns out he actually clicks Sub, so that makes things a lot easier. He weakened himself to put himself into range of my Hyper Voice, and I went through his Sub anyways, so that was a pretty ballsy play on his part going for the substitute there. I'm not entirely sure what he was trying to do, because early game it looked like he was predicting me to be Scarf Heliolisk, but he probably calced the damage to see that it was Assault Vest, or at least like really Spadef. Excuse me. And then took the risk and went for Sub to see what I was going to do, but I guess he forgot that Hyper Voice went through Sub. So he loses his Pidgeot, which was a huge problem in my team, and it looks like a lot of defensive things, plus a Mimikyu and Thundy now, so I'm fine with just staying in here. I'm actually really fine with just staying in here against Mimikyu specifically. I went for the T-Bolt hoping for a 10% para, and it turns out we actually get it, but mainly just to break the disguise, and we're just going to die to play rough. It's not a huge deal to me. Heliolisk, like we've seen, this is physical Thundy, so Heliolisk is not actually providing me pretty much anything besides just something to attack with, and I don't really think it's my best play to save Heliolisk there and go into something else on a potential play rough. I potentially would have died to play rough plus Shadow Snake with Torn had I brought it in there. Actually, I would have been full, wouldn't I? But I potentially died 2 play roughs in the Mimikyu, and I needed to break this disguise, so using Heliolisk that way is fine, and I get rewarded for it with the 10% para. So I'm going to go into Torn now. I can Hurricane this, and then, you know, we actually get the confusion. And he hits himself in confusion. So I get a lot of luck against this Mimikyu, which is not something that I've had a lot of this game. You know, I missed 3 moves early on in the game, so I guess it's finally coming back a little bit there. I broke through confusion with Heliolisk. I get the para, I get the confusion. I don't think that I've actually hacked anything else this game up to this point. But yeah, Mimikyu seems to be getting the brunt of it here. What I forget is that he can attack me, and I probably should have just gone for U-turn here. But I'm going to go for the Heat Wave instead and pick up the kill. I figured if he didn't want to attack me, that's fine, but he does go for this tiny bit of chip damage that he gets with Shadow Snake and pick it off. Thundy comes in, takes more Rocks chip, which is perfect. That's what I want from it. I figure it's likely going to click like Wild Charge here, just to get rid of my Torn. I don't really have the best switch into it, but you know that seems like an alright play on his end. So I'm just going to go into my Gardevoir, try and trace the Volt Absorb again. Which is a play I made early on in the game, I think, and he's actually just going to kill me with the knockoff. So that's fine by me. It actually means I get in my Hydra, which is going to tank the knockoff pretty easily, and I get to U-turn out on this Umbreon here, which puts it in range of a Scissor U-turn, which is also a really free click here. And we're just going to be able to pick off the Umbreon with the U-turn there. So just cycling U-turns is kind of the idea of this whole team at the beginning, was just cycling U-turns on things that got threatened out, but I figure Hydra's a relatively safe click here. You know, if he's got the superpower on the Thundy, then I can scope for it by going into something else. If he brings in Ferrothorn, I just click Fire Blast. If he brings in Wheezing, I just click Dark Pulse. It was a pretty easy decision-making process, and Hydra sort of like got a kill no matter what. So he brings in the Ferrothorn here, takes the Rock Chip, and I'm just gonna be able to click Fire Blast, and we're gonna crit it and kill it. I have no idea if that mattered or not. It wasn't Akka. Yeah, I don't really know if that mattered or not. I'm not entirely sure. I know that Gardevoir would have killed through Akka if it would have killed Spadef Akka because I was modest. Gardevoir, it was a roll in my favor, but I'm like timid Hydra with Fire Blast, which is a non-stab move. So I'm not entirely sure what I would have done there, but Thundy's going to come in. It's either going for U-turn or Superpower. Either way, Torn is a really free switch in here. There's no way in hell that it was going for Wild Charge there. And he actually kills himself by going for the U-turn here, because my Rocky Helmet chip puts him in range of Stealth Rocks again. So basically, it's like Wheezing against the world here. You know, he can't remove these rocks in time, so I'm going to taunt this Wheezing from clicking Pain Split and making things more challenging for me. And then I'm actually just going to land a Hurricane. So we're going to be able to kill off the Wheezing, and then Thundy is going to die to rocks on the same turn. So we pick up a nice big win here. Nice 4-0 win. Probably could have been a little bit more. Had I been a little less reckless with my Gardevoir early on in the game and just clicked Psychic, I probably would have been able to at least tank the knockoff from the Thundurus, lose my specs, but then put myself in a position where I can click Moonblast relatively freely, or in that case, probably HP Fire, because I don't really understand what the Thundurus would have been doing staying in when it wasn't going to kill me with the next knockoff. But there you go. That's my bad for not clicking Psychic against the Wheezing. I figured it wasn't really a safe play with the Ferrothorn and the Umbreon sitting there, but he seemed to think that it also wasn't a safe play and caught me really well on that read. So yeah, pick up the nice 4-0. We move to 4-4 plus 3. There's 2 weeks left. We are right in the middle of the playoff hunt right now, guys. 4-4 plus 3. There's not much else to say. Like, you know, I knew this was a must-win game, and it absolutely was a must-win game. I think that Scotty is probably most likely not going to make playoffs based on that. He does have like 2 relatively easier opponents to finish out a season, but unless he wins both by large margins, I can't really see him competing for a spot. Next week we have Stibe and the Helsinki High Jump Kicks. He's first in the entire league. That's really scary. That's really scary for our playoff hopes, because I need to pull as much differential out of that game as I can if I'm going to lose, and I'd rather win. I would much rather win, take a lot less pressure off of myself against Sean in week 10, who's got a really threatening team against mine. So yeah, there's a few things to consider there. Once we get our 5th win, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable about playoffs, because if we can get our 5th win with a positive differential, then I think we're probably sitting pretty. But I don't think that things are going to be figured out for a long time. So I'll keep you guys informed. I'm probably going to ask the UPA admins at the end of this week about what's going on with playoffs and how they're going to break down. Maybe if they can do like a clinching breakdown and an elimination breakdown for us, then that'll be really helpful in terms of my building, I guess, in terms of how specific I want to go with spreads and things of that nature. But yeah, we take on Stive next week, so keep an eye out for that, and I'll catch you guys for week 9.